Hello everybody, you're welcome back again to the Reggae Appreciation Society. By the early 1990s, reggae music was in a very exciting place. Despite the global breakout success of artists like Shabba Ranks, the phenomenon called slackness, which had overrun the genre in the 80s, was melting away in the wake of a scorching wave of conscious sound being unleashed by a new crop of artists that became known as the Rasta Renaissance. The leader of that movement was the great Luciano, aka Jam Messenger, a phenomenal talent who first conquered the sound system circuit before bagging a #1 hit with the song Shake It Up Tonight in 1993. It's no exaggeration to say that Luciano was the most complete artist of his era, endowed with a magnificent deep warm voice, impeccable diction, and extraordinary songwriting skills. He carried himself like a king, but face to face was amazingly humble. His music was phenomenal to say the least. A devoutly spiritual Rastafarian singer with lyrics that inspired and energized the soul, with songs like the irresistible It's Me Again Jah, Messenger, Over the Hills, and There's No Love in the World, would all make him a global phenomenon who was loved and adored from Africa to the edges of Asia. And let's not even talk about his stagecraft. He always put in spectacular shows that were bursting with emotion, energy, and acrobatics to crown his wonderful songs. My strongest memories of the year 2001 was a younger, more reckless me on a 200-kilometer road trip in my old jalopy in the middle of the night. My then smoky and shaky 1985 Jetta was barely holding together, but I felt unstoppable as it had killer speakers and a CD player on which I blasted my Luciano Greatest Hits CD without a care. He was simply a juggernaut in the 90s with all the tools to take his dominance to the next level in the new millennium. But contrary to expectations from his fanatical fans like me, he somehow lost momentum due to a combination of factors, both within and beyond his control, that stopped him from being the next true reggae global ambassador, prompting us to ask the question, why didn't Luciano fulfill his potential? The answers to this question originates from the year 1996. Luciano was then the main man at Exterminator Records, owned by legendary producer Philip Pattis Burrell. It had been 3 years since his Freddie McGregor produced album Shake It Up Tonight had become an international hit and had spawned the #1 chart singles hit of the same name in the UK. His 6th album, Messenger, had also been a smash hit, and with a distribution deal with Island Records plus huge global tours, the sky was his limit. But internal label politics would spoil the party at Exterminator Records, as that label began to focus on new acts like Sizzla Kalonji and step down his new projects for the next 3 years. And after clashes with Sizzla and other Exterminator new acts, plus a failure of label boss Pattis to address his concerns, Luciano quit the label after releasing the phenomenal Sweep Over My Soul album in 1999. It was the last album that would have Pattis Burrell as executive producer, but he would still maintain a cordial relationship with his ex-boss and kept collaborating with the label's director of music, Dean Fraser, and the label's in-house band, the Firehouse Crew, for future projects. He was also on good terms with Exterminator's tour manager in the legendary Copeland Forbes, who he would engage as his own official manager. Pattis had been an incredible mentor and producer to Luciano, but in truth, he wasn't the best manager and had made big mistakes with Luciano's career. But now, he was his own man and was now free to take advantage of the enormous opportunities that were dangling before him, as he was by then among the hottest reggae artists on the planet. On the surface, this should have been the launchpad to the next level, but on the contrary, the opposite would be the case. Pattis had blocked him from many collaborations and deals for reasons best known to him. In fact, a while ago, I made a video that told a story about how he blocked Eddie Murphy from recording a song with Luciano. But now free, he would literally dive headfirst into every deal he was offered. After leaving Exterminator, he signed a deal with VP Records for the release of his album New Day, an arrangement that he told his manager was only a 1-album deal. Upon release, it became a big hit, and personally, I love that album to bits. Our Jam Messenger still delivered on wonderful tracks like Oh Father I Love Thee and the phenomenal Road of Life. It got nominated for a Grammy for Best Reggae Album, but lost narrowly to Damian Marley's Welcome to Jamrock. Luciano would for his next project sign up with UK record label Jetstar Records for the release of his next album, The Great Controversy, in the same year. A good album, no doubt, but I personally rate it a few notches below his best from the 90s. And after that, he bagged a deal with global giants EMI, and everything looked to be falling into place when the hammer would drop. One day, Copeland Forbes got a call from VP Records executive Joe Chin, who told him that he had just heard that Luciano had signed a deal with EMI while still legally signed to VP. And Forbes found out during that phone call that instead of the 1-album deal for the New Day album, Luciano was bound to a 3-album deal and still owed VP 2 records. But EMI were crazy about Luciano, and it all led to a legal tussle between both giant labels. In the end, EMI gave up and would terminate their contract. And the matter had barely settled when sound system boss and producer Jack Scorpio stormed the VP Records office with a master tape to an album which he had recorded with Luciano that was called Serve Jah in 2002. I haven't got the details of how Jack Scorpio and VP Records settled the matter, but the label took the master tapes off Scorpio and released it as Luciano's official second album. And for the third album, VP Records would spare no expense and paid for recording at the awesome Gijam Studios in Portland, Jamaica, plus the finest studio session instrumentalists in the land. And Luciano himself would do what he does best by writing beautiful songs like Stay Away and my personal favorite, The World Is Troubled. All the songs would make up the lovely Serious Times album that came out in 2004, but before the promotional worldwide tour could kick off, it was discovered that Luciano had signed for US-based label Shanachi and had even recorded songs for a full album. Understandably, VP Records were not happy at all, and it got worse when Joe Chin also found out that Luciano had also signed for a German record label and had even released an album with them. In the words of Copeland Forbes, if a record deal was marriage, Luciano would have been a rabid polygamist. Eventually, VP Records got exhausted, and after being forced to release loads of albums which didn't pass through their own production processes and quality standards, eventually didn't renew their contract with Luciano. But despite not having a global giant record label behind him, he was still in serious demand for reggae shows and festivals all over the globe. But unfortunately, the same issues which had derailed his working relationships with the big labels also affected the touring side of his career. And all the chaos eventually led to Copeland Forbes and Dean Fraser parting ways with him sometime around 2007. Luciano would continue to release albums over the years, which by all standards are quality, but nowhere near the levels of what he came out with in the 90s. I honestly believe recording for so many producers dissipated his energy and definitely watered down the quality of his music. But don't get me wrong though, Luciano is a legend in reggae history and one of the greatest singers and songwriters to ever emerge from Jamaica. The phenomenal legendary jam messenger is always in the conversation when we list the greatest of all time. But for all his gifts, he confirmed the saying that the best artists don't necessarily make the best managers. So there you have it. Thank you for watching this video today. Please leave a like, subscribe, and until next time, Jah bless.